I'm going to kick this off and get started with my speech, so I can guarantee you I'm going to cry. But losing my dad, Tom, has been unbelievably hard. There's no words to describe the kind of man he was and the void he left. And I think that everybody in this room, no matter if you knew him 6 months ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, almost 50 years ago when he moved to Aspen, nobody here can say that there's not a little bit of a void that was left by his absence. But that's also the beautiful thing about him, is that void wouldn't be so impactful if he wasn't such an incredible person, incredible man. Over the last, 5-10 years, Jack and I started calling him the dad man, because he was the best dad and best man that I've ever met. I know there's a lot of dads in this room, so I'm sorry to all of you guys, but he was the best dad. So he really did earn that nickname. In mine and my brother's life, he was a real-life superhero. As many of you guys know, I have a superhero tattoo on my arm. Not many people know the story behind it, but when I was 4, I had an autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it made me paralyzed. And I had to rebuild my muscles and kind of relearn how to walk. And he, at the time, was working at Little Annie's, I believe. He hadn't started at the Red Onion yet. And so he switched to working nights while my mom worked days, and he helped me get my dexterity back in my hands by playing Legos with me. And he would encourage me to continue walking, and we would walk down to the Basalt Local Library, which was about a mile or so from our house, and my reward for getting there was comic books. So really did inspire my love for superheroes. He was the most compassionate and caring person I've ever met. He lived his life by trying to make this world a better place, and touch the lives of any person that he met. And a lot of people, there are a lot of great people, but I think that his compassion for everybody was great. I know that when he left Little Annie's, because there was a fallout between him and the owner or manager, because of some discrimination that had happened, and my dad wouldn't stand for it, and he just up and left because he basically said, "F this, I'm not gonna associate myself with this." And then that's when he moved to the Red Onion. As I mentioned before, I don't think that there's a person in this room whose life he didn't touch. But as you know, that every room he entered, he made the room a brighter place. His smile was infectious, his laugh was infectious, and he brought so much joy to everybody. He accepted everybody that he met, even if he disagreed with them ideologically, politically. He found a way to connect with everybody. And he taught my brother and I that, to be accepting of everybody, whether it's race, religion, political beliefs, anything like that. And I think that's something that, especially in today's climate, is something that I just want to reiterate to everybody, is just accept and love everybody as much as you possibly can. As an example of accepting everybody, in high school I had a little bit of a goth phase. I grew out my hair, had a nice little goatee, and while I was judged by a lot of people, either at high school or in my community, my dad always said it's a phase, and you'll grow out of it, but even if you don't grow out of it, like, I'll still love you. And I mean, I clearly grew out of it a little bit, but sorry. He was the person that I would turn to during any hardship, whether it was work or school or many relationships, or again, civil issues. And I just remember I would always go on walks just around the park or around my block, and I would just call him, and we would talk about it, and he would always find a way to restore my hope in whatever was going on, and just bring me a little bit of peace and comfort, which right now has been the hardest thing over the last 3 months. But I value that probably more than anything because it's allowed me to help restore some hope and peace that people around me, especially in my work setting and academia and everything that have, like I'm able to restore peace and help try to find the silver linings, and I attribute that solely to him. He always taught me to be self-reflective and introspective and make sure that my life was in balance, that it was in balance, that it is in balance, that it will be in balance. I remember during those conversations on those walks, he would always ask me, how's my mental health? How is my physical health? How's my spiritual health? You know, not necessarily religious, but just how are you communing with the universe and those around you? And I think that also just speaks to who he was, is that he cared about every aspect of each person that he met, not just who they were, but who they were inside and out. And he loved everybody for that. My dad was also the strongest person I've ever met. Many of you know that over almost a decade, he was battling cancer. He had a very rare type of lymphoma called Waldenstrom's macroglobulinemia. There will be a quiz later. So not only was my dad a unique human in every aspect of life, but even when it came to cancer, he had to just be unique. Because I'm a scientist, just to give you a little background. Waldenstrom's is about like 1 in 100,000 people, which is not common. And then he was on and off therapy for almost 10 years. And then in December, because he just had to be unique again, he decided, or he didn't, the cancer decided to metastasize to his brain. Which, again, for an incredibly rare cancer, me doing my research and trying to be the logical person and cope with this, there are all of like 5 case studies on this in the entire history that this cancer has been known, so it's not a common presentation, and that's just who he was, is that it took a unique cancer with a unique presentation to finally get him. But with that, he still was able to spread love and peace and just continue to spread joy in the hospital. As you'll see with my brother's amazing slideshow, one of the last pictures was us at Christmas, and he's wearing a Santa hat and smiling, and he would always make the nurses laugh, and the nurses would always come in saying that he was their favorite patient, which I'm sure they say to everybody, but they really meant it with him. But he really fought like hell for the last 9 to almost 10 years. Even through a hospitalization in 2023 that almost got him. He was in the hospital down in Denver for 42 days, which is quite the stay. He had a whole lot of delirium, and we thought we were going to lose him then, but he fought like hell, and he decided that, I remember distinctly him coming to the realization that he had more to live for me, my brother, my stepmom Mary, and all of the people in his life, that he wasn't ready to leave the world just yet. He wanted to continue spreading hope and love. And that was a conversation he said to me when he finally came out of his delirium in the hospital. For a long time, I worked in research, and I wasn't sure if I actually wanted to go for my PhD, but watching him combat his cancer really, really instilled in me the sense of purpose that I wanted to dedicate my life towards working on developing better cancer therapies so that people like him don't have to go through what he did. And you're welcome. And I know he frequently spoke to me with people about how proud he was of me and my accomplishment. because everybody I meet always say, oh, your dad told me what you're doing, and he's so proud of you. And I think I've heard those words more than a lot, which I am probably one of the most fortunate children and sons ever to have not just a dad that tells them that they're proud of them, but also like brags about them to everybody. I remember when I ran a marathon in 2015, he was like, I'm so proud of you, like this is a huge accomplishment. Everything I did was an accomplishment, and everything was the most proud he could be. But nothing in my life will give me a bigger sense of pride than being his son. If I can just live my life to be half the man he was, half the human he was, then I can actually consider myself a success, no matter what else I do with my career or anything. Sorry. So I'm going to just leave you guys with a few words that he always left me with and my brother with as we would leave the house for school or end our conversations on the phone with. Smile at everybody you meet. You never know what people are going through. Yes is best. He would say that whenever we wanted to say yeah. Yes is best. Please and thank you, first time, every time. And then do something nice for somebody. And say hi to all of my friends. And so with that, please just live your life every day. Do something nice for somebody. And just in that way, you can honor his memory and keep him with us. Thanks.
It's only 8 pages, but it's double-spaced, and I'm old, so I'll be really, really good with it. You know what? I'll just try to give you the highlights. I'm John Craw. 8th grade is where I meet the great and marvelous Thomas Elder, and absolutely blew my mind because we were at a cotillion where you learned how to do the cha-cha-cha and the foxtrot, and then they let us dance where you didn't touch each other. Tommy threw his jacket over his shoulder, undid his tie, and did something called the Choctawhatchee Stomp, which I don't know where that came from, other than we were living in Florida at the time, and there was a Choctawhatchee High School and a Choctawhatchee Bay, so he kind of stole it from there. But as I was standing there listening to Alan, I remember a song by the band called, and I forgot it as soon as I got over here, I think King Harvest. Can you hear that band song, King Harvest? It's got like this weird syncopation to it with twitches and stuff. Can you see Tommy? And then he throws in those Joe Cocker hands. And then he gives it that Stevie Wonder head. I mean, you just had to love the guy. It's like, Tom, you know what? A lot of people around here are not doing that. And Tom would just go, they're missing out. You'd go, wow, this guy's remarkable. Okay, that was my first page. So I met him in 8th grade, and we were Ruckle Junior High boys together. Our fathers were Air Force officers, so we moved a lot. So we moved from Florida. I met him in Maryland, and up at Maryland, he was a guy now in high school that was able to shake it and make it with the babes. And there'll be another gentleman up here in a little bit, David Steinbeck, and he might say that this is incorrect, but we hung out with Tom because Tom's girlfriends had girlfriends. And David and I, we needed a girlfriend, but we had none of Tom's moves or his chatter or what he was doing. So off we went. I put down one of the songs that he loved. It'd be Ronnie and the Daytonas, wah, 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 little GTO. And he would sing that part. You'd make David and I sing along with him. When you rode in the car, you were singing little GTO. It was awesome. Tom, nobody else is doing this. They're missing out. They ended up in Sunnyvale, California, and I got in the military, and he was kind enough to invite me over to Sunnyvale and do a few things. And I missed out in '67, the Summer of Love. He took me up to the city because it was the epicenter, Haight-Ashbury, and we were in a few of those places. And all of a sudden, all these Grateful Dead people, Tommy walked in the door and went, "My people, my people are here." And I'm telling you, I'm not exactly a Tommy guy in the sense that I was ready to do Joe Cocker hands and get all that going on. And I just went, "Yep, they are. These are his people." But a big smile on his face. And like Alan said, you just wanted to be where a man was smiling and being kind to people. So you were just attracted to him. You just wanted to spend more time with him. I remember some of the people from then, Jimi Hendrix Experience, the Young Buds. I'd gone to the West Coast, found that stuff, took it back to Maryland. All of a sudden, I was a cool guy. So once again, I could thank Tom for making me a cool guy. When they moved to Fairfield, California, they moved up to Sonoma State to go to school. So Bob Deffelson, that you'll hear from later, and Randy and Tom all had a little place, and I could drive over from my military duty and hang out with them. And so we kind of spent quite a bit of time there. We really enjoyed Kung Fu. Anybody remember Kung Fu? Mr. David Carradine, yeah, he kind of had that going on, didn't he? So as Alan said, we didn't always agree on our politics or our religion or which Chinese proverb from the lips of Kung Fu, Mr. David Carradine, made us the wisest grasshopper. But I always thought it was me. He always thought it was him. But we loved each other anyway. That's the type of man he was, yeah. There was a time frame that he brought Alan and Jack over to visit me. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm in the golf business. I'm a golf professional. Let's hear it for the golf pro, huh? Yeah. No. As you can see, Tom was way above me in the pay grade. He was the man. But he came over, and he brought Alan and Jack, and we did some things. We played a little golf, had a little time together, and I think they learned a little golf and enjoyed it, and, we just spent a little time. One of the days of their visits was on a Sunday, so they joined me and my family at our local church. I have become, as the mass media would label me, a Bible thumper. You know what? It didn't seem to change Mr. Elder's opinion of me. He still thought I was okay. Is he amazing? He even thought I was okay. Well, I would just encourage you that tomorrow starts a 3-day remembrance of what occurred that changed the world. Good Friday followed by Easter. Jesus conquers death. The power of God is on full display. I would respectfully ask that you take some time over the weekend to revisit those claims. That would be from my heart. That would be from Tom's heart. In closing, I'd like to just read a poem that he left for me when he and Mary had traveled through on their way to Michigan. Anybody ever get a 3-page letter from him? The best, absolutely the best, yeah. And I think I wrote him back some abstract sentences and something, run-ons, and just like I am. I'm staccato stanzas and run-on sentences. Anyway, few may there be as years go sliding by to wait at cold windows for you to come, to send a whistle down the woods so high, it sings the trees to best a calling hum. Travel to the welcome houses of friends, open old doors and be greeted with cheer. Drink from the cup that good fortune intends to be shared and passed with those gathered here. Create a new story to swap someday with those who will travel to your own home, of friends who surprised you along the way by telling you of a road they did roam. For in listening is heard a fresh tale that refreshes a traveler grown fair ale. Love, Tom Elder with his beloved wife, Mary Johnson. Tom's willingness to overlook our shortcomings as people, his zest for life, and of course his joyous smile and laughter were magnets that drew us ever closer to this wondrous human. I miss you, my dear friend. Thank you so much.
Well, I guess I'm next up. I'm David Steinbeck, also a long time friend of Tommy's. And I first became aware of Tommy Elder 10th grade, 1964. We were one of those awkward 10th grade dances in the gym where all the ladies were hovered around in one group and the guys were wandering around trying to break in on their, break a lady out onto the dance floor. So all of a sudden there was this person out there had scored a lady onto the dance floor, and all of a sudden he broke into what Johnny probably was referring to, what he was doing in 8th grade, was some sort of wild Indian dance, complete with hopping around and the woo-woo-woo. And the young lady soon abandoned the dance floor. And I thought to myself, well, that might have been the wrong dance, but it was the right guy. And we became fast friends at that point. Our relationship basically was a competitive one first. We competed on the basketball court. We competed verbally every time we passed each other in the hallway. It was the old teenage boy syndrome of put down, come back, and always arguing over who was winning. So it was always friendly, and but it was competitive. So after we went our separate ways there in 12th grade, my family moved to Florida. His family moved to the Bay Area in California. And I went off to West Point, and he did some traveling and actually stopped by West Point to see me, which was really a tricky operation at the time. It was deep in the Vietnam War, and here was this hippie-looking dude in a Volkswagen bus with California plates coming to visit me. So we managed to get through that without attracting too much attention. What we did was we went down on Flirtation Walk where there was nobody down there at the time and had a nice 2-hour visit, and then I spirited him off the post there before we attracted any undue attention. So then I went in the Air Force. I took my commission in the Air Force, and my second airplane was out there in the California Central Valley in Merced. Tom was up at Sonoma State with Randy and Rob, and it was only about 3 hours away, so I would go visit, and also his house in Saratoga. So every weekend we would get together, and he was coaching me up on the California music scene, and my next stop was going to be South Dakota, so he loaded me up with lots of albums and books to keep me entertained there while I was out there with the Air Force. And so then he did some traveling after Sonoma State and ended up in Aspen, where he just fell in love with Aspen. And that was the end of that. He spent the rest of his life up here. And I would come down from South Dakota. It was about a half-a-day drive. And watched him go through his employment routine in Aspen. He started out as a mechanic 3rd class until he found out that he didn't know the business end of a wrench. So they made him a bus driver, and he was much better suited for that. Great entertainer on the bus. And then it was Little Annie's, and when we were patrons at first, we would stop for lunch, and he earned the nickname of Applesauce because he couldn't afford anything else. So they would bring him a big bowl of applesauce for $1, and that's how he got his nickname there. And soon, lo and behold, he got a job as a bartender there, having no experience. His signature drink was a shot and a beer. And every bartender at Little Annie's, their signature drink was a shot and a beer. If you wanted a margarita or a daiquiri, you had to go someplace else. And then he progressed on to bar management and restaurant management. Meanwhile, of course, he met Denise, moved down valley, had a couple of children. I was doing the same thing in Florida at the time. And so we were lucky enough to get the families together, once in Florida and once here in Colorado. And then he went into retirement. He and Denise separated, and he met Mary, moved down farther down the valley onto a nice little house on a creek, and went into civic volunteer work. And, as I recall, they won an award a couple of years ago for Volunteers of the Year down here in Newcastle. Along the way, he was a published poet and a novelist. It was a full and productive life, a life well lived, as they say. I feel fortunate to have been a part of his life. Okay, I know, Tommy, you're looking down on us from the spirit world. I hope you run into some authentic Native Americans up there who can coach you up on that Indian dance that you were trying out in the 10th grade. I'll close with a line from one of his favorite tunes, Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks. Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay, Tommy, you old cowpoke. A fond and loving farewell, my wonderful friend.
Hello, everybody. For those of you that don't know, I'm Jack, brother of Alan, and of course, the younger son of Tom. Just want to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for being here. There's a lot more people here than I thought. Wouldn't expect anything less. There's just so many beautiful faces, so much love in this room, and thank you all for joining us. It means the world to me and my family. It's no secret that my dad used the word groovy a lot. It's mentioned in the program a few times. We just planted a tree downtown we're calling the Groovy Tree. We use the word groovy, kind of promoting this celebration. And just looking around the room, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you showed up thinking this was some sort of invitation to drop acid and play 18 holes. Now, I'm not saying that's off the table, but before we get to that, we got a few more things to get through before we can officially let loose. If you knew my dad at all, you knew he was a talker, but he was also the greatest listener. He was an avid reader, an accomplished writer, a brilliant thinker, and a fantabulous communicator. From an early age, I remember we'd dedicate so much time to having deep chats. We'd stare up at the stars and discuss the vast infinite space of the universe. The complexities of the human mind, the origins and purpose of the soul, if one exists within the others, and of course, what lies beyond. He really encouraged Alan and I to think for the sake of thinking, learn what we can, and communicate to the best of our abilities. He really valued higher education. He read more books than anyone I know, even wrote a few himself, wrote countless poems, worked as a substitute teacher, was involved at the library. When thinking of attempts to honor my dad, we thought a scholarship would be a great direction. It feels like a cool idea to help someone in my dad's name with the opportunity to further their education and mental expansion. We are proud to announce the Tom Elder Groovy Guy Scholarship. where one of the core components is a short essay on the student's commitment to peace and love and making the world a better place. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can talk to the family or go to tomelderscholarship.com or .org. Either one will take you there. We're all here because if you knew my dad, you loved my dad. It was as simple as that. We've all known my dad through unique timelines and experiences. When I came to town, he was pretty settled in at the ripe age of 45. We kicked things off with the classic happy family vibe, house in the cul-de-sac. Alan and I would play hide and go seek with the neighbor kids and always be welcomed home with the warm clangor of my dad's big brass dinner bell. It was truly the best childhood imaginable, and when I think of my earliest memories of my dad, the strongest visual that comes to mind is him riding the shopping cart through the grocery store parking lot. With his bright blue eyes and his glorious grin, his inner child and joyous spirit were potent enough to capture any attention and infect even the most stoic. My dad was so kind and jolly to everybody. I remember through my entire life, anywhere we went, whether it was at the Red Onion, where he seemed to be king, or walking around town, anywhere we went, he would go out of his way to smile, crack a couple jokes, and just seem dedicated to brightening others' days. Often strangers. His joy was just so contagious. Beyond charisma and an elite sense of humor, he was extraordinarily kind, generous, and caring. One of his mottos, and he would tell us this almost every day as kids and to adults, he'd say, "Do something nice for somebody today." And he wouldn't just say this, he would live it. My dad would never hesitate to do something for somebody else, and I believe the generosity and care and kindness he gave to me and my brother, his family, his wife, his closest friends, he would equally share with a complete stranger. Gotta take a little beer break. As kids, he would wake us up, Alan and I, to one of the many Tom Elder original jingles. He'd sing, "Good morning, good morning, good morning, and a fine morning to be." It was a classic. As a child, waking up to that every morning did get a little old. Got a little brutal after a few years. But looking back at that, it's one of my most cherished memories and a tune that will be stuck in my head for the rest of my life. For as long as I can remember, my brother and I have referred to my dad as the dad man. He enjoyed calling my brother Alan a Landalone international film star and would call me Jacques Louis with his self-declared phony French accent. He always added his custom bop bop to the end of every birthday song. My dad left his trademark everywhere he went, everything he said. He brought that little extra spice, that Tom Elder, groovy guy, dad man flair. My dad lived through the hippie era, and I think was even a participant. He protested the Vietnam War and later the Iraq War, and was undoubtedly, through his entire life, so committed to promoting peace and love. He was a music lover with a very proud record collection. I think about the music he would share with Alan and I as kids. It all had so much meaning, and his favorite music was all filled with so much intention and a greater cause. Bob Dylan, Phil Oakes, Garland Jeffries, it was all messages of peace and love in an effort to make the world a better place. My dad was very proud to share his birthday with Abraham Lincoln, old honest Abe. He lived up to that astral coincidence. He was the most honest person I know. As kids, we had 3 deadly sins: lying, stealing, and cheating. I honestly only heard him swear a handful of times. His virtue and wisdom are something I'll forever admire. He was really a man of supreme values, and throughout my life, felt like my biggest mentor, my personal philosopher, my spirit guide, my best friend, and my biggest fan. As my dad grew into his last name, a joke that always landed with the nurses, and one that I'll keep in my back pocket for as long as I possibly can. As he got older, he was diagnosed with cancer, an almost decade-long battle, and as the disease came in waves and waxed and waned, he was so strong and resilient and positive through every step. He would ride these waves, and up until the end, he was still adamant on trail running. He completed the Basalt Half Marathon in 2022 and won Volunteer of the Year award alongside our wonderful stepmom, Mary. Alan and I and Mary are the proudest possible people. On his worst days and his hardest times, he was somehow still smiling and more focused on getting a laugh from the nurses than answering their questions. The doctors would be on a pretty tight schedule, and we're asking him about his symptoms, and somehow he would segue into telling an old story, cracking a joke, or reciting esoteric folk lyrics. It was this positivity that was one of his greatest gifts, that I can look back on those moments, those hardest ones, and still find a reason to smile. Alan and I were truly the luckiest sons. My dad loved us in true surplus. Every greeting and departure was welcomed with the warmest hug. He was never shy to tell us how much he loved us and how proud of us he was. I think I speak for Alan and myself. We're both as proud as humanly possible of our father. And I know that we both live actively and will continue to do so to make our father the proudest he can possibly be. It was one of the happiest moments of my life to watch my dad watch my brother, his oldest son, give his PhD defense, the culmination of many lifetimes worth of effort. Dad was so proud of you, Alan, and your commitment to researching cancer treatments, along with the virtues you demonstrate every day, are a testament of how great of a father Dad was and how great of a person you've become. His spirit really does shine through you. The spirit in my dad's eyes was unmistakable and undeniable. I really admire the way he lived. He danced through this world with tremendous strength, passion, virtue, a childish spirit, and brilliant wisdom. From my earliest memories to his latest days, he never stopped riding that shopping cart through the grocery store parking lot. And I'll continue to keep my ears perked for that dinner bell. So please, tap in and feel his spirit, because I know it's in here. It's within each of us, it's all around, and of course, into the great beyond. It feels impossible to properly honor my dad, to live up to the man he was. But we can do our best, and we can do what we can, and we can channel his spirit and take his love and release that back into the world. So please, in honor of my dad, go out and do something nice for somebody today, and every day if you can. Thank you. With that, we have a presentation, a slideshow we'd like to show for everybody. But before we do that, we'd like to open it up to anybody that wants to come up and spill a couple words. First volunteer, first taker.
All right, Jack, I'm Swanee.
Hey,
Yeah,
Swanee,
I
good to
remember
see
you
you.
from years ago, long time ago. Yeah, this is hard to follow those guys. Those guys are schooled in this kind of stuff. But I do have a few words to say. I thought I'd known Tommy for quite a long time, and then all these guys come up and they've known him since 8th grade. I'm like, holy crap. But I wrote a few words. You know, we already heard a poem that Tommy wrote. This is not on that level, but it's an ode to Sir Thomas of Elder. I always called him Sir Thomas because he had certain air about him that I thought was definitely a step above. Anyway, I met Tommy at Little Annie's bar. He had an aristocratic air about that could not be marred. You couldn't put his personality into a jar. I knew right away that he would go far. When Tommy worked, you could see right to his core. If you didn't like Van Morrison, he'd show you the door. He'd probably have a Jameson or 2 or 3 or 4. If you were looking for Tawaka, you'd surely get a good pour. Then Tommy met Denise and had 2 fine sons. He settled into having a different kind of fun. His late night capers were officially done. He started from a different direction, seeing the rising sun. But as these things sometimes do, his world went astray. He thought about returning to the San Francisco Bay. But Wobbs at the Red Onion enticed him to stay, so he didn't completely lose his way. But things at this time were getting a little hairy. life was anything but light and airy. This is done in Swanamic pentameter, so if it doesn't really fit. Anyway, things were getting a little bit light and airy. You know, things can get a wee bit scary. And then along comes Mary. Yeah, if you want to see a free, a bit of tea, a friend of tea, below her name. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Finally, Tommy had met his match. Mary could get to that itch inside Tommy and scratch. She could even answer more questions when Jeopardy they did watch. If he had finally found his lifetime catch. Suddenly, there was a shifting of the tide. Mary became Tommy's get-in-shape guide. He started his soon-to-be legendary bike rides. His conditioning became a real source of pride. One day, Sir Thomas said to Mary, "Look, I've always wanted to write a book." Mary took him by the shoulders and shook. Said she, "Sit down and start to write in that little nook." Upon publishing his book, one goal Tommy did reach. Should he now just go relax on some beach? No, he had one more missing gap to breach. He had to fulfill his destiny to teach. Okay, I'm sorry, that's what's, okay. Over the years, Tommy's health started to slide. He put up the good fight with Mary by his side. He put a good face to his friends, his pain he did hide. When we heard the bad news, I'm sure we all cried. Now, now I know the earth will still spin. The sun will come up as it always has been. And although I'll always think of Tommy with a grin, the world will just not be as groovy without him in. Thank you.
Any other takers? Aunt Tina, sister of Tom.
Oh, thank you all for letting me be here and speak. I didn't plan to. See, no papers. But I am Tom's sister. We had separate mothers, but we were 2 months apart in age, and so obviously we shared a room while we grew up. He took the top bunk. I took the bottom. And he was such a great brother. In fact, with names like Tina and Tommy, and we were both blonde, and we had freckles and bluish eyes, everyone kind of thought we were twins. So I've always considered him my twin. And it turns out, on a soul level, he is my twin. When he was writing a book, I was writing a thesis, and so we would challenge each other. How many words did you do today? Where are you? Where are you? Yeah, he won. His book got published and well read by all of us, and mine's sitting on a seminary shelf somewhere in California. So, but it was such a joy to be writing together with him and having someone to talk to. He's just always so positive, always up. And let's see what else. Oh yeah, there's one other thing that, I don't know if you'll get this, but it is probably the tenderest thing for me, is when my husband died, Tom immediately came to me to support me. And he was there with such love. And I asked him to do this really weird, crazy thing. I said, they're having a kirtan, they're singing kirtan. He goes, what's that? And I go, well, it's singing the names of God in Sanskrit, and it's just very uplifting. He goes, well, whatever you want to do, I want to do. Because that's Tom, right? So he went with me, and He was so moved by that, he went right back to Colorado, dug out his books, got out his Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and read it and began following a spiritual path right along with me. So you're a great yogi, brother, and I love you forever. I always will. And I just wish I could tell you so many kid adventures we had together. He's the best brother. Thank you.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, let's get that presentation on the way.
Keep a fire burning in your eye, and pay attention to the open sky. You never know what will be coming down. I don't remember losing track of you. You were always dancing in and out of view. I must have thought you'd always be around, always keeping things real by playing the clown. Now you're nowhere to be found. I don't know what happens when people die. Can't seem to grasp it as hard as like a song I can hear playing right in my ear that I can't sing. I can't help listening, and I can't help feeling stupid standing round, crying as they ease you down. 'Cause I know that you'd rather we were dancing, dancing our sorrow away. Right on, dance. No matter what fate chooses you play, just do the steps that you've been shown by everyone you've ever known, until the dance becomes your very own. No matter how close to yours another steps have grown, in the end there is one dance you'll do alone. Keep a fire for the human race. Let your prayers go drifting into space. You never know what will be coming down. Perhaps a better world is drawing near. Just as easily it could all disappear, along with whatever meaning you might have found. Don't let the uncertainty turn you around. The world keeps turning around. Go on and make a joyful sound into a dancer you have grown from a seed somebody else has thrown. Go on ahead and throw some seeds of your own, and somewhere between the time you arrive and the time you go may lie a reason you were alive that you'll never know.
If I had wings like Nora's dove, I'd fly up the river to the one I love. Fare thee well, oh honey, fare thee well. Remember one morning in the drizzling rain, all around my heart was an aching pain. Fare thee well, oh honey, fare thee well. One of these mornings, and it won't be long, you're gonna call my name, and I'll be gone. Fare thee well, oh honey, oh fare thee well. If I had wings wings like Nora's dove. Fly up the river to the one I love. Fare thee well, fare thee well, fare thee well, oh honey, fare thee well, oh honey, oh fare thee well, fare thee well. Fare thee well, fare thee well, fare thee well.
Ho, ho, ho. Hope you're doing groovy and feeling fantabulous. Keep the faith and keep the love. Okay, okay. Adios, I love you and bye for now.